Hey, I'm Shawnee, and this is Social Anxiety Confessions. Welcome to part 2 of my video series on dating with social anxiety. If you missed part 1, make sure to check that out because in part 1 I talk all about how I started dating, my experiences, my first ever date with someone that I met on Tinder, and I talk about my biggest piece of advice for you if you're trying to start dating and you have social anxiety or selective mutism. I give you my tips and I give you some ideas for how you can meet people. So in this video, as promised, I'm gonna be sharing some of my Tinder first date stories. I wouldn't call them love stories, but like after the first date with a few of these people and just Tinder experiences. This video is called What My Tinder Dates Taught Me, but before we jump into the video, let me tell you guys a little bit about me if you're new here. Growing up, I had an extreme form of social anxiety called selective mutism. When I was 23, I feel like I finally overcame my social anxiety for the most part. When I was 24, I started dating for the first time ever. When I was 26, I came out as bisexual/queer, and today, I'm still 26. I don't know why I'm telling the entire internet my age. So when I first started dating, I didn't realize that I liked girls until a few years into dating. So all the people from these dating stories are guys. This is gonna be a very guy-centric dating video. But at present time, I'm not really dating guys. I'm only interested in dating girls. I'm not saying it's always gonna be like that. How do I know what I'm gonna be like at every moment in time in the future? And that's not really what this video is about. This video is about dating with social anxiety. So let's jump into this video. Let's talk about some Tinder dates. When I first started dating, I got on Tinder and I got on OkCupid. I didn't have any experience. I should probably mention that again in this video. I had no experience when I first jumped into dating. None. Zero. And I had 2 kisses, one when I was 11, which is like one of those practice kisses with your friends. I will tell the story of another one of my early Tinder dates. When it comes to dating guys, I've always been interested in dating guys who are older than me. So a lot of the guys that I would match with and that I would go on dates with, and a few of them who I ended up having like longer term situations with, ended up being older than me. And when I say older than me, I mean 7, 8, 9, 10 years older than me. The guy in this first date story I'm going to tell you, I think he was 10 years older than me. I'm not going to use his real name. Let's call him Adam. So Adam and I talked on Tinder, and actually I think I still have a little bit of our chat. Do you guys want to hear a little bit? I never unmatched him. It's years later. If he scrolls down through his old Tinder matches, he will still see my face. I better not accidentally like one of his old as F messages. That would be so embarrassing. His first message to me was, "Afternoon, Shawnee. Pleasure to meet you." Smiley face. What can I say? Performer, violin, guitar, that smile. Deliberate, super like, merited. Scott Pilgrim is the bee's knees, because I would always put in my bio that I really like Scott Pilgrim. God, I'm such a nerd. And then I said, "Ah, thanks, haha, you're making me blush." "You seem pretty cool yourself." I haven't read this since it happened. He said, "Haha, well shucks, thanks. One has to approve when someone willingly puts their best nerdy foot forward first." And then we just kind of talked about stuff. He asked me out on a date. He was a musician and a comedian, and I think also an actor. So we had like the creativity in common. We met somewhere in Silver Lake at this diner. As I was walking over, it was just like in the pit of my stomach. I was so nervous. I was so scared. I did have the thought like, I'm actually really proud of myself for being here. And it's kind of exciting when you do something that scares you that much, but you see yourself like doing it anyway. And it's just something so exhilarating about that. I remember I was walking towards the diner and it was dark and I saw him standing there. And it's just always so nerve-wracking when you see the person you're meeting for a date standing there waiting for you. But that is usually the scariest part, when you first say hi. So in my last video I talked about how that date wasn't good. We didn't click. It was hard having a conversation. This date was good. So this was my first kind of experience with like a good date. It was easy talking to him. We had a lot in common. I remember he actually brought up politics on the first date, and we had all of our politics in common. And it's actually great to know early on if you do have those things in common. We got like pie and ice cream at this diner. It was kind of cute. Afterwards, he walked me to the train station. And then like before he said goodbye, I think he said something about wanting to see me again, and I said yes. So I agreed to a second date. So I went on 4 dates with this guy. So on the third date, I took him out, but he still drove us because I don't drive. But anyway, I took him to like a comedy show. We didn't have our first kiss until date number 4. I think this might have been so early on. This might have been one of my first kisses as an adult. Because I mentioned in my last video that my first kiss as an adult was like with a stranger on a train that I never saw again after that. And I remember being really nervous about our first kiss. I was really nervous about kissing him or kissing anybody, and actually I think back then I even looked up those videos or like those like just help on the internet, like how do you kiss someone? Do you guys do that too? Now it's so funny because like kissing is just intuitive. It's intuitive. You don't have to worry about it. Anyway, we had our first kiss on date number 4. It was at his apartment. He had this cute apartment. He was like perfect in a lot of ways. But we had our first kiss, and I didn't feel anything when I kissed him. Like it wasn't like, I just didn't really, there were no sparks. He was the first guy I really had like a real kiss, like kind of makeout session with, I guess. And I just remember in my head thinking, is this what kissing is supposed to feel like? Because it doesn't feel all that great. But just kind of sad to say. We drifted apart after that. Like our communication kind of faded off, and I think it started because I ending up in the hospital like really soon after that with some kind of medical problem. I remember he offered to come see me in the hospital, like to bring me soup or something, which is so sweet, but I said like, no, it's okay. Looking back, like, why did I say that? Like, why not just let this sweet guy just bring me soup? I don't know. We ended up drifting apart and we stopped dating. Lots and lots of months later, I texted him out of the blue. We met up again. First, I should say that I wanted to be into him, but I just wasn't. And I was still like very new to the dating world, so I didn't know how it was supposed to feel. Everything about him seemed perfect. He was such a gentleman too. Like, one time I was waiting for my Uber on his doorstep and he like gave me his jacket. He never wanted to let me pay for anything. It's just really sweet stuff like that. I do like to pay for myself. I like to let us take turns, you know, because I can pay for myself too, you know. He was just like perfect in every way, but that spark just wasn't there. So I just had to trust my gut. But then, I don't know, months later I texted him, we met up again for coffee, and I think it was gonna like possibly be like, we're gonna give this another try thing. But when I saw him again, I was like, in my head I was like, okay, I'm still not into him. Which is so sad, because why I'm the one that initiated meeting up again. Like at the end of our little coffee date meetup thing, I was like, at the end of our coffee date, I was like, we should be friends. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, let's be friends. Like, he was a good sport about it. But that was my way of saying, am I mean, you guys? Am I mean? And I just don't realize it. Am I a heartbreaker? No. I might be. I don't think I am. No, people are always breaking my heart. So I met someone else. So I went on another first date. We are gonna call this guy, who was also 10 years older than me. And if you're a guy who dated me in the past and you're watching this video right now, why are you watching this? I'm literally talking about you, 1. And 2, why are you watching this? Please stop. I don't think any guys I dated briefly are watching this, but just in case. I need to make them feel weird about that because I don't want them watching this. Okay, so we're gonna call him Brad. I know what it sounds like, and it's exactly what it's not. But we're gonna call him Brad. So I met Brad at a whiskey bar, and Brad was very sophisticated right off the bat. He showed up, he was wearing a hat, he was one of those guys. He seemed very hipster. I think Brad had a beard at the time, not a long beard, but like, you know, just a little beard, button up top. Brad was really into whiskey and liquor, and I would soon learn Brad was also into a lot of things like that I didn't really know about, and just Brad had been all over, and Brad was very worldly and was always traveling for work. Brad was a filmmaker. On our first date, we met at this whiskey bar. It was a speakeasy, and I remember he ordered whiskey for us, and he was like, have you ever tried it like this? And he like showed me like this sophisticated way of drinking whiskey when you really appreciate whiskey, and it was just all this stuff, and he was like telling me about it, and I thought he was cute, like I was into him. And we were in downtown LA, and we went to a few different bars after that, and it was a really fun first date. And the thing about Brad was we clicked like really well. Like we clicked really well. Like he was one of those people that I immediately felt like I could just have fun with and like play with and just be like childish with. And he was kind of childish too. Like we both had that childish thing about us, and we had a lot in common. Like we were both really into Star Wars. We were both really into Wes Anderson movies. Brad, you better not be watching this. We were both into the filmmaking world, so we could talk infinitely about that. Oh, someone's getting home. The thing about Brad was, you guys, like on our first date, we were sitting at like the bar near the end of the date, right? And he was telling me he like had a trip coming up where he was gonna go to Switzerland to work, and he was like, do you want to come with me to Switzerland? Like on our first date, he invited me to Switzerland with him. Which, when it first happened, in the moment, I was like, oh, I was conflicted. A part of me was like, this feels like it might be a red flag for someone to be inviting me across the world on a first date. It feels like kind of a red flag, because it's so out there, you know? But then another part of me was like specifically had always wanted to go to Switzerland. The thing about Tinder is you can't always tell what people are looking for. And the thing about me was, like I said, I didn't have that much experience. I was naive about so many things. We had our second date, like, I don't know if it was a few days later or a few weeks later, because he was literally always traveling. We were eating dinner, and it was like this really fancy food. And he always had pretty expensive taste too. And back then, I didn't have a lot of money in my bank account. And I remember on the second date being nervous because I was thinking I was maybe going to offer to pay because it was a second date and he paid the first time. But when we were actually at the place and eating the food and like everything, I was thinking in my head, okay, I cannot afford this. I remember kind of being like, in my head, maybe this isn't gonna be the best match if he has expensive taste like this, because that's not where I'm at in life. And then he like was asking me about what I did and like where I lived. I was telling him, you know, that I live with a family member. He like made a comment about that made me feel like he was judging me. And I didn't like that. And in that moment, I kind of decided like, okay, I don't know if this is gonna work. I forgot about my iced coffee over here. Okay, we're in a new location because the person I live with got home. Anyway, Brad was basically like, you should come over my place and we can watch Scott Pilgrim. And honestly, it sounded fun. So after the restaurant, we went to Brad's place. And I saw Brad's place, and guys, Brad's place was, how do I put this? Really nice. That's all I'm gonna say. I was a little shook, like, oh, okay, this is where you live? Okay. Another time during the day, Brad and I were hanging out, and I think I asked him something like, are you a relationship type of guy? And back then, I was scared to straightforwardly say what I really wanted. It was hard for me to say things like that. It was hard for me to ask those questions. It was hard for me to express what I was personally looking for, what I wanted dating-wise. It was hard for me to express what I needed and everything like that. It was hard for me to communicate those things. It was hard for me to advocate for myself ever. It was hard for me to ask the difficult questions and have the difficult conversations. Do what you have to do to figure out if you're on the same page with someone that you're dating. It was hard for me to do any of that. And honestly, guys, it still is. That's still a challenge for me. But I recognize now that it's a challenge, and I try to push myself now to have those difficult conversations and to be more honest. And I am actually proud of myself because recently I did push myself to, you know, challenge myself there, and I am getting a little better, but that is still hard for me. So anyway, I was with Brad and I asked him something like, are you a relationship type of guy? And inside, what I really wanted to know was, is he open to a relationship? Because I was, and at that point, that was kind of why I was dating. I wanted a boyfriend at the time. Anyway, he said something like, no, not really. Not really. Relationships kind of make me feel like I'm trapped. They've made me feel trapped in the past. I tried to act nonchalant, like I didn't care, but I really had to try hard because I did care. And I didn't like that he said that, and that's not what I wanted to hear, but I didn't say that, and I just kind of accepted it. Long story short, Brad and I ended up having, people used the word situationship, and it was definitely that. A situationship that lasted for like around a year or more, so a very long time. If you were to ask him, he would just say, yeah, Shawnee's my friend. She always has been my friend. He really liked that word, friend. Whenever we were anywhere else, he would always introduce me as his friend. And we had a very on again, off again thing because he was always traveling. In the beginning, we would text each other, but then it became more like long periods of time where we wouldn't talk at all, and then we would see each other, and then more long periods of time where we wouldn't talk at all. I'm gonna get to the things that Brad taught me, because Brad taught me probably the most. I fell for Brad, and Brad did not fall for me. I never asked certain questions to really know this matter-of-factly, but I'm pretty positive, 99.9% sure that Brad had a lot of friends. We even went on a trip together at one point, and I told him how I felt, and his answer kind of showed me that he didn't feel the same way. I remember he straight up said at one point that he can't be in a relationship with me. He doesn't want a relationship. But guys, it's not that Brad didn't want a relationship. He just didn't want a relationship with me. Because now, Brad is in a relationship with someone else. Let's talk about the things that Brad taught me. Brad taught me that when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Or shows you. If someone tells you or shows you through their actions who they are, believe them. And that's like a popular quote. I didn't make that up. Brad was one of my major learning moments and growing moments in time, because he was really one of the early people in my dating journey. He was one of the early guys. I explained this in my last video that I was very insecure about how little experience I had. I had no experience when I first jumped into dating. And so I didn't really tell people that unless they asked, because I just felt really insecure about it and just embarrassed about it. Looking back now, I can say that throughout the whole time that Brad was in my life, it caused me a lot of emotional turmoil. There were a lot of tears. He definitely caused me a lot of pain because I naively was in this situation that I was expecting to turn out differently because of my lack of experience and my lack of knowledge about how dating is and how men are and can be. Brad taught me that if a guy tells you he doesn't want a relationship, it sometimes just means he doesn't want one with you. Not that he doesn't want one. Brad taught me that it doesn't matter how much time someone spends with you. It doesn't mean they care about you. It doesn't mean they respect you as much as you may think they do. It doesn't mean that they will ever see a future with you unless they explicitly tell you that's how they feel. Just because you spend a lot of time with someone doesn't mean they don't have a lot of other someones that they're doing the exact same thing with. You don't know unless you ask. I don't mind telling you guys straight up that that's the type of situation I was in. I don't mind being super honest. Maybe it might help someone out there who's like kind of naive like I was. But one thing that did happen with Brad was there was a moment where I finally pushed myself to tell him how I felt. Something along the lines of, I like you and blah, blah, blah. And he, in so many words, didn't reciprocate that. I remember we went on this trip together. I said how I felt, and then I got back, and a few days later was Valentine's Day, and he didn't reach out at all. And that was kind of the moment when I knew I need to not do this anymore. This is ridiculous. And that's kind of when I started realizing this is actually a really shitty situation. How he's treating me is really not great. What's happening here? Those are the moments when I started realizing, you know what? Not only do I want better than this, but I deserve better than this. And it was after that I said, you know, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this casual thing anymore. It's not working for me. And that was really hard for me to do, but I felt like I needed to end what we were doing. So that was that. We're still friends. Not that kind of friends. We're just normal friends. Normal friends. He would still consider me a friend, and I would still consider him a friend, though I'm not really interested in seeing him really right now, seeing him with his new partner, because I'm just not. But you know, maybe one day we'll meet up and catch up over coffee or something. You know, a funny thing, after Brad, I dated another guy also named Brad. Brad's not the real name, but the guy I dated after Brad had the exact same name as Brad. And this one also ended very badly. After that, I was like, I cannot date any more Brads. I simply cannot. I don't care who you are. I'm not dating you if your name is Brad. And Brad is substitute for the real name, but you get what I'm saying. I'll tell you like 1 or 2 first date stories that only ended up being first dates, and then I'm gonna wrap up this video. Okay, the first was this college guy. We were both serious nerds and we were both really into Star Wars. And I remember actually when I first started dating, one of my criteria was the person had to be into Star Wars. It's not really a criteria anymore, but back then it really was. So we were gonna meet at this Indian restaurant. I met him, we went in. The vibe felt a little off like from the start. He just seemed really, I don't know if rigid is the word, but he wasn't super like chill and just friendly and open and talkative. He was like the opposite of all of those things. Like, you guys know who I am, right? Like, I'm the one with social anxiety, but I was the one kind of pulling the conversation along, which probably tells you that it was very hard. This was one of those dates where the conversation felt like pulling teeth from the start. And then we're here, it was one of those first dates where it was a meal, which is why I quickly learned that I prefer to like grab drinks or coffee for a first date and not an entire meal, because if you end up not liking the person or not vibing with them, then you have to sit through this entire meal. He wasn't giving me that much for the conversation, and it's like we talked a lot over chat and it worked, but in real life it just wasn't. And so then in the middle of this date, he looks over and he notices that a few tables over is like a group of his friends that he knows from school or something. And he looks over and they have this exchange where they're like, hey, oh hey, it's you. To them, he's like, oh hey, yeah, like he recognizes them, and they have this exchange and they talk for a few seconds, but he like doesn't reference me at all and doesn't introduce me at all and just doesn't say anything about me. Like, almost like I wasn't even there. That kind of annoyed me, because I'm like, why not even talk about the person who's sitting right in front of you? They can clearly see me sitting right here. And that was like, okay, dude, fine. Anyway, that didn't lead to a second date. Last date story, I met this guy on Tinder. He was an Italian guy. I met at this downtown LA bar. We got a few drinks. It was fun. I thought the date was gonna wrap up after the drinks, and he said something like, do you want to drive to Koreatown? And maybe he said get some food or something. So we Ubered to Koreatown, but the place we Ubered to happened to be like right across the street or right around the corner from where he lived. So when we got out of the Uber, he was like, are you cold? You seem cold. And I said, yeah, but it's fine, it's okay. And he said, oh, I have a sweater at my place. Do you want me to just go grab it? And I was like, wait, what? And he was like, yeah, I just live right over there. I could go grab a sweater. It's totally fine. And he really seemed adamant about wanting to grab this sweater. Once again, I'm naive. So I was like, you know what? Fine, sure. So we walked to his apartment. I thought we were just gonna grab the sweater. No. We get there and he's like, do you want to come in and wait inside? I said, sure. Why not? Nowadays, I would not. So many things I wouldn't do nowadays. So I step inside. His brother is there. His brother and his brother's girlfriend. And he introduced me. And then he was like, my room's this way. Telling this story back is like, there are so many things. But it's only in hindsight. It's only in hindsight. So we went to his room and he showed me around and he had like a piano. But we never left though, because then we ended up just hanging out in there. I didn't say. I ended up leaving soon after that. What that date taught me was, now I can very clearly and very obviously say he was just looking for a hookup. And I was, once again, I'm gonna keep saying this, naive. If I could rewind that night, I just wouldn't have gone in the apartment. It's kind of like, there's only one reason a guy ever invites you in his apartment. Like, it's never just, oh, let me grab this sweater for you because I'm a nice person and I see that you're cold. It's never that. It's never, oh, let's just watch this movie because we both like it and we'll just have fun. It's always an ulterior motive, and I wasn't thinking about those things, and I just didn't get the rules that you kind of get, and like just the facts and the things that you just know when you've been doing it for a while. So that's what that one taught me. And it taught me, well, I'm not gonna go over a guy's apartment on a first date, or obviously a stranger's apartment in general, first of all. And looking back, it's really, really, really good that the people all ended up being not terrible people. Like, there was never any assault that happened to me. There was never anyone trying to like kidnap or murder me. I mean, I'm not stupid. I was safe to a certain point. Like, I would always meet them at a public place. I would never have them pick me up and know where I lived right away. I've always had that sense, that sixth sense. But at the same time, there are just some things that I did that probably weren't the safest. And that brings us to the end of this video. I don't know, this video kind of turned into, I don't know if I really expected it to be what it ended up being, but I don't know. Sometimes I like watching these storytime videos. Sometimes I like hearing about people's like dates and like love stories, or in this case, not love stories. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. This was things my Tinder dates taught me. Subscribe so you can see me again. If you do, you'll see me again soon. Visit my channel, check out the other videos I have up there. If you haven't watched part 1, go check that out. The first video is more about how I pushed past my social anxiety to start, and how it was hard for me to do that at first, and how I have advice for you guys to do that too. So I hope you like this little 2-part mini dating series. I will see you guys again very, very soon with some brand new content. Bye!